Good evening, everyone, and welcome to WCU Craft, Westchester's Poetry and Creative Arts Festival. We are on day 4, Saturday, 5:30 panel. It is the Kim Bridgford Memorial Panel and the launch of Amaranthine Summer. I am going to introduce Ryan Wasser, and then Ryan will take it away. Ryan Wasser is a returning graduate student with an MA in English on the Writing, Teaching, and Criticism track at Westchester, who is currently pursuing a second MA in philosophy with an eye toward PhD in the same. His recently published article, Crises and the Ethic of Finitude, adopts Heidegger's consideration of finitude as a means of examining how the global pandemic impacts an individual's psychological welfare, as well as potential avenues for understanding the self as an essentially finite being in order to mitigate existential strain. There's the period there. He has a broad range of
feeling charlatans
from theories of personality and psychology, primarily 16 PF and the Big 5/NEO, existentialism and Heideggerian phenomenology and philosophy, to psychoanalytic theory in English studies. And without further ado, please join me in welcoming Ryan Wasser to the stage.
Good evening, everybody. I'm going to keep this relatively short as I'd like to give the most amount of time to my readers as possible. As Dr. Pollard said, my name is Ryan Wasser. I teach English studies at Lackawanna College, and I have probably the most annoying biography in the room. Anyway, so real quickly, a bit about it in Amaranthine Summer. This is a project that myself and one of my closest friends, Shane, put together in memory of Dr. Kim Bridgford. Originally, it was meant to be a chapbook where we were going to collect a bunch of poetry and then present it to her while she was in the hospital, but unfortunately that never happened. So yeah, there's 25 authors in this anthology, and they span the range of types of authors, from amateur students to professionals who've been in the poetry scene. Well, I don't know what everybody's exact details are, but basically seasoned professionals. On that note, I'd like to take the chance to thank Shane. I couldn't have done this without him. And unfortunately, last year, while we were going through this anthology, he had some serious medical issues, so he can't be with us tonight, but he was really the driving force behind this. So, okay. Tonight we're going to have 8 other readers. They're going to be doing the poetry readings. The first is going to be Barbara Crooker. Barbara is a poetry editor for Italian Americana and the author of 12 chapbooks and 9 full-length books of poetry, with Some Glad Mornings published by the University of Pittsburgh's Poetry Press. That's her latest. Her awards include the W.B. Yeats Society of New York Award, the Thomas Merton Poetry of the Sacred Award, and 3 Pennsylvania Council of Arts Creative Writing Fellowships. I'm not going to go over all the places her works appear, but those should be visible on the craft page. Barbara, if you'd like to take it away.
I'll be happy to. Thank you for letting me go first. Kim was a dear friend. Kim and I met at Westchester. I was on the Mezzo Camine, the forming of Mezzo Camine, and then we continued our friendship with Poetry by the Sea. I'm going to miss her forever. I'll read Chris O'Carroll's July in Pennsylvania. First, the Mockingbirds at Gettysburg pry bar their tails against the summer, lever at some insubstantial weight. Between the stones on which they perch, the memories of war ride on the air, as massive and as light as breath, elaborated into prayers and slogans, platitudes and battle cries. Valor, glory, the cause, this hallowed ground, These are the words, the living heft and clang above the voices of the birds. The dead reply with wordless oratory. Breath exhaled a long silence ago bears up the outstretched wings as singers pause their songs to swoop from monument to monument. And then I'll read one of mine, which Kim had published in Mezzo-Camine. And just in case you don't catch the form, it's an embedded abecediary. This American Life, where Annette in Beach Blanket Bingo shook her brunette curls, called to Frankie, batting her baby browns to come over and cover her in copper tone. Damn, that girl was hot. Doo-wop on the portable radio, feet drumming, land of 1,000 dances on the hot sand. Fetch me my sunglasses, she cooed, and go get me a Coke and a hot dog, pretty please. How about some Hostess ho-hos, too? July and the sun beating down upon the roof. Juicy fruit, jujubes at the movies. Keep the hits coming on KLUV, Top 40s radio. Little Latin loopy-loo, then Maybelline. Your mama said there'd be days like this. Madras plaid shorts, perky headbands, ponytails bouncing. Then quiet nights under the stars, driftwood fires, sparks rising. S'mores, their sticky sweetness in the salty air. Throw some more branches on the fire. Very soon, Vietnam will catch us in its undertow. War with no exit plan. You're only 19. Your chances of getting out are just about none. But tonight, algorithms be damned, the sun's going down with a sizzle, and look, there's the moon, bathing us all in its false zirconia, its dreamy, Zaftig zero light. Thank you. Thank you, Kim. Shine on us.
You know, Barbara, every time I read "That girl was hot," that's like for some oddball reason, that's like my favorite line in the entire thing, and just the way you read it, it's fantastic. Okay, so our next reader is going to be Karen Kelsey herself. Karen is the owner and proprietor of Kelsey Books, and she's been so generous in working with me and producing this anthology. I don't have a biography. Words. I've got word degrees. I don't have a biography for Karen. I somehow managed to not pick that up. But if Karen, you'd like to introduce yourself, that'd be great. You got to make sure you might be on mute.
I'm trying to find my
You're good.
thing. Well, I don't have it in front of me, but I do write poetry sometimes. Mostly formal poetry, but the one that I put in the anthology is free verse. I did want to just read a little thing about Kim. Do you want me to do that now?
I specifically put you in this slot so you could.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I first became acquainted with Kim's name through my book publishing company, Kelsey Books. And some of the authors I published had endorsements on their book covers that she had written. I always like to look at the blurbs and figure out who that person is. And when I learned she had a magazine, I submitted several poems to her journal. And it was at that time I found out she is really particular about what she accepted. She's also very kind about the selection rejection process. And to my relief, she printed two of my poems. Later, I had the privilege of working with Kim on two of her books, Bully Pulpit and Human Interest. She had an easygoing, perfectionistic attitude and quickly sifted through the things that mattered and didn't. I struggled to find anything to edit in her books. Once I pointed out that there was an exclamation mark missing, and she agreed. And she just made me feel like I made this vast contribution to her book. I was on 2 publishing panels at Poetry by the Sea, and I watched her between classes and meetings juggle all types of personalities with ease. She seemed superhuman, composed, and polite. I didn't know Kim as a personal friend. We had more of a friendly business relationship. When I first saw her in real life, I was stunned. I imagined her to be 6 feet tall. She was such a powerhouse. Instead, I found out she's like the same height as me, like 5'2". Watching Kim and seeing her achievements made a big impression on me. She had a vision and reach for things. She thought globally. Before COVID hit, I had plans to advance my company into an international publishing company, holding events in other countries. I wasn't really sure if anyone would show up, but she was one of the first persons to say that she'd fly to London for the Kelsey book reading. So, I've drawn courage and inspiration from Kim's achievements, and I'm very thankful that I got to meet her. And now I'm going to read a poem that's in the book. I grew up in Southern California, so I have a lot of beachy poems, and my mom's 94, and she had cancer about 8 or 9 years ago, so I had a bunch of poems about her come out while she was sick. And she was from Nebraska, and her parents and her brother and her grandmother all decided they were going to move to San Diego. So they just hopped in the car and left. And this is called In a Hat Box. When I wake at 3 in the morning with stars sprinkled between my curtains and see my old hat box wedged on the corner shelf beneath scallop shadows, I remember its contents of unused wool from the needlepoint canvas, colored pencils, and the camera with a broken lens. I recall a length of ribbon too dark for my hair, business cards that no longer matter, a plastic harmonica from an amusement hall, and an old monogrammed handkerchief wrapped around a black and white picture of you, leaning against a palm tree. Back then, you were a transplanted Nebraskan, collecting San Diego summers in your pockets, exploring tide pools and sailboats. Each Saturday, you rode the bus to Hotel del Coronado, where big band music filled the Victorian ballroom. One night, you posed on the lawn in pearls and heels, beneath the sand dollar moon embedded above the bay. That was before you married Dad, before trips to Bermuda and Europe, mundane chores, diapers, 3 children, bike rides and sewing classes, before illness, when a slice of moon could move across Coronado Bay and still glint in your eyes. Thanks. That's it.
Thanks, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay, real quick. Just so you know, for those who don't know, the proceeds from an Amaranth in Summer. One of these days, I'll be able to say that all the way through without screwing it up. Excuse me. All the royalties from this anthology are going to be going to establish an award in Dr. Bridgford's name at Westchester University for creative writers to go to professional development conferences. The extent to which the book continues to draw proceeds, hopefully we'll be able to continue this project. And me and Ms. Pia and a couple of the deans over at Westchester have also discussed different ways to, keep that going. Anyway, so our next reader is going to be Charlotte Ines. Charlotte is the author of Descanso Drive, a book of poems that was also published by Kelsey Books, and 2 poetry chapbooks, Licking the Serpent and Reading Ruskin in Los Angeles, also both published by Finishing Line Press. Her poems have been featured in many places. I'm not going to go through all the different individual publications. As a former teacher, Charlotte well, as a former teacher, newspaper journalist, and freelance writer for many other publications, including The Nation, Los Angeles Times, Charlotte currently tutors students in English and creative writing. She's originally from England, and she now lives in Los Angeles. So, Charlotte.
Okay, I just unmuted everyone. You're on the screen, so Ryan.
Yeah, these.
How do I do this?
Okay.
We see you when you talk, Charlotte. It's fine.
Sorry?
When you talk, we see you. So.
Mhm.
Oh, okay. Okay. All right. Well, sorry for that. Thank you for inviting me here, Ryan and Shane and everyone. And Kim, I didn't prepare anything to actually say about Kim, but I have enormous respect for her and what she's done. You know, I used to go to Westchester, the Westchester Poetry Conference when she was running it, and also to Poetry by the Sea, which was fantastic. You know, that's, to me, it's like, oh no, I can't see Kim at Poetry by the Sea again, you know. And she was so generous. I mean, she helped me get scholarships because I'm not that well off, you know, and she helped me when I went to Westchester. She had other poets, you know, help sponsor me. And when I went to Poetry by the Sea, which was actually hugely expensive, you know, she again helped me afford to go. And it's like, I'm just so grateful for that, because I was able to see all the people that I know but never see, you know, and get to learn some wonderful stuff about poetry and just the whole shebang, you know. So I miss her very much. And I'm reading two poems. I'll read my own first, just the way I practiced it. So I'm just going to do that. The poem that appears in the book is called Pandemical Number 14. And as it sounds like, it's part of a series that I wrote last year. Almost, I was thinking the other day, it's almost like a diary, because I wrote it as things happened and went along. And I chose this one because it's about the summer, which is, as Ryan asked us, you know, it's the theme, sort of the theme of the book. But it's about, from my perspective, it's about missing going to England. You know, I go to England. Yeah, now I've been going every year. So it was a huge loss, you know. And so it's about missing England, but also something else creeps in, I think. So Pandemical Number 14. The village I cannot visit now slides in glimpses through my thoughts. The cows grazing meadows by the river Soar that lie across from a field where my father's aging into earth, his quiet body giving way at last to what we're all made of. I'm oddly shaken to think my body's a living piece of him. So he's still here, laid to rest, but living on in me. Cliché, you'd think, but having felt so separate for so long. My life, my life. I cannot say what all this means to me, except that more of me is there than I had thought. But oh, I want to see the village, my stepmother's garden, to hear the blackbird's song, to smell a rose, clink cheers, and talk of jaunts we might embark on. So that's my poem, and I really do get along with my stepmother so well, and she's in her 80s and loves going on jaunts, and you know, we've always done that. So I miss that. So now the next one is, I think, sort of connected. I didn't realize that when I chose it. It's by Bruce McBurney, who's here, and welcome, Bruce. And I didn't know he was going to be here, but I mentioned that I'd be reading his poem. And so he has come, and I'm very pleased about that. And it's also a poem about family, really, and sort of about summer, and it's very tender and very moving. And I'm really happy to read this. Okay. The redwood picnic basket. I take it down and set it on a table. A redwood picnic basket that my dad passed on with all the keepsakes that he had from forebears. I look through them when I'm able. Young Jan, grandma, on horseback at the stable in maybe 1910. My great granddad just turned 18 in Tandragee. A sad obit, a diary, a family fable. Much more than snapshots, vestiges of lives that burned and shook with frailty and laughter. It's said, however stilled by what comes after, that however stilled by what comes after, old love, remembered, somehow still survives. Dear parents, grandparents, so long away, I thought of you and said your names today. So that last bit really gets to me, and thank you, Bruce, for writing it and being here. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlotte. Okay. Let's see who is next. And of course, I clicked the wrong thing on my computer. Okay. Our next reader is going to be Joyce Wilson. Joyce has taught English at Suffolk University and Boston University. She's the creator and editor of the Poetry Porch. I will actually go ahead. I should have been doing this for everybody else, and I'm sorry if I hadn't. But if anybody's interested, Poetry Porch is right here. And that's been online since 1997. Her poems have appeared in many literary journals. Again, I'm not going to go through all the journals that were published. 3 of her poems have been included in this anthology and are from her chapbook, The Spring House, which appeared in 2010. Her chapbook, The Need for a Bridge, and a second full-length collection, Take and Receive, were published in May 2019. So Joyce, go ahead and take it away. I'm looking forward to hear it.
Thank you so much. And my book, Take and Receive, was published by Kelsey Books. So thank you, Karen, as always. I'm going to start with a poem by Kyle Potvin. This is in the anthology. It's called Shun, which is the Japanese tradition that food should be eaten only in its proper season at peak flavor. Tongue-tied blushberry, rush of ready, nose of now, slice crimson, spoon cream, tongue on June, juice chin loose, sugar-tipped lip, shun, which is a way we all would like to relish life, I think, in this commemoration. And the poem of mine that I will read is appeared in Mezzo Cammin. I was very grateful that Kim included it. It's from an earlier chapbook called The Spring House, which is a series of poems about my childhood in southeastern Pennsylvania, where there was a spring house on our property. And some of the runoff formed a brook. And that's the subject of this poem. And by coincidence, it does have amaranth in it. The brook. I asked the brook to show its knowledge of the world. It raised the image of my face, but never said a word. The shining surface trembled. Gnats rose up in swarms, like knotted iridescent strings in effervescent storms. My heart took flight and followed into an open field where amaranth and barley grew and kestrels turned and wheeled. And then I lost my way upon a hard terrain until I saw the brook emerge and lead me on again. Thank you very much, and in memory of Kim.
Thanks, Joyce. William, is that you under Liz Thebe? You're on mute. I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry about that. My wife uses the.
No problem. I thought that was you. Sometimes the pictures on the email pictures are a little small. Okay, everybody. William's going to be our next presenter. William took his master's degree in English from UC Santa Barbara. Again, I have word things. From UC Santa Barbara. Much unrelated work in research and composition followed before he returned to academia in 2000. The Able Muse publishes a collection of his early verse under the title Uncontested Grounds, and it may be reviewed at their website or via Amazon. He retired from teaching as a dual citizen. William resides with his wife in the West Midlands town of Warwick, England. So, William?
Thank you. Not that far from Charlotte, I might say. This first poem is the last poem in Uncontested Grounds, which I read at my father-in-law's funeral not too long ago. So I thought I'd start with it. The Newly Dead. Stories say the newly dead return to savor momentarily the lands and people they must leave. Their breath no more than failing breeze, their body heat a sun's ray poured through streams of shadow leaves. Blessed river of forgetfulness, your sweep removes the rasp edge of desire, slips vision from its mortal boundary, and soothes the human plight. This change of blood for water, downstreaming passages of light. Grief is innocence, observing shadows westering from fields and friends as riven strains of music play. Time is not kept. Some final pliancy at heart conveys the soul we were, or are, or will yet be. Like other folks, I knew Kim from Westchester to start with. And I wanted to give my condolences to her family first, even though in a literary way, we were all Kim's family, for the closest and dearest spaces reserved. In my space, I'd like to read a snippet from Kim's second book, the one titled Instead of Maps. She didn't conceive this as autobiography, of course, but for me, the words retain a deep imprint of her, the woman, Kim Bridgford. The impossible for you was like a cup you drank from, and you, in turn, believed that when you suffered, you were lifted up, and when you trusted, you were also loved. Kim trusted, and the people who met her at conferences year after year learned to return that trust as a form of love. A fellow like me from a small, loosely populated poetical world, I trusted. Year after year, I took the freeway down from Massachusetts or up from New York to merge in a formal way among like-minded people in lectures, workshops, over meals, or in dormitory sitting rooms. And lastly, in the social gatherings at the end of another stimulating day. Kim didn't generate that pattern of experiences on her own. A hierarchy of leaders and support people were involved. But Kim managed those experiences. She cajoled and nursed and lent shape to them, the seminars, the readings, the meal times, and the various evening carryovers. So this is the poem that's in the book from me to Kim in appreciation. She nudged green talents from the shade of other poets. Every novice knew inquire, and she'd point up the courses best for you. Mulling how to fence stampeding raw experience into a canny narrative, she'd smile and shortlist real alternatives, yet managed well enough not to manage stuff too closely. She set folks carving their own schemes through spans of English oak. Lending speech to spirit, she helped us hear it, the measured choices folded in the metaphor, the range of mortal voices. And thank you very much. And thanks to Kim.
You know, while we got a second, I've got to say, William, I really appreciate that. I don't think I became quite the poet maybe Dr. Bridgford would have hoped to have become, but that's the kind of story I kind of recant in the foreword of Anne Amaranthin's Summer. One of the things used to happen, Dr. Pollard saw this more than times that she probably care to admit, me popping in and, you know, bothering Dr. Bridgford while she was at her desk. And, you know, she'd look up and give me the hi and, you know, a couple words here and there. So I really appreciate that, William. Okay, moving on. Our next reader is Pat Valdata. Pat is a fiction writer and poet. Her new novel, Eve's Daughters, was published by Moonshine Cove in November of 2020. Her other novels are Crosswind and The Other Sister, which won a gold medal from the, you're gonna have to correct me for saying this wrong, Arpaid Academy of the Hungarian Association. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Close enough. That's awful. I can't believe I just said that. Her poetry book about women aviator pioneers where no man can touch won the 2015 Donald Justice Poetry Prize. Other poetry titles are Inherent Vice and Bivalve. A native of New Jersey, Pat lives in Crisfield, Maryland, with her husband, Bob Schreiber. So, Pat?
Thank you so much, Ryan. First of all, can you guys hear my dog barking in the background?
Yeah.
Let me close the door real quick and I'll be right back.
Okay. I know that feeling, so that's why.
Sorry about that.
Well, it adds personality to it, you know?
All the neighbors are walking back and forth. Thank you, Ryan and Teresa and everybody at Westchester for doing this. This is, I still can't believe she's gone. You know, I just still can't believe it. And I think part of that is because she's really not gone, because she's done so much for all of us here and so much for so many people that she got one hell of a legacy. And Kim, if you're listening to this, I'm drinking tea out of the Poetry by the Sea mug today. So I'm going to start with my poem, Ocean City. A chocolate lab dashes into and out of the waves, rubs her belly and back along the wet sand. I'd love to hug every soggy inch of her. I remember my first ocean, feet swept by advancing foam, icy swirl of salt under my heels, surf booming in, hissing out, the squeal of boardwalk rides, lunch a cone of frozen custard melting all over my hand. We rode home with a towel between the vinyl car seat and our wet bathing suits, sunburn flaming our arms. And this amazing poem by Therese Coe, originally published in Miller's Pond, called As Wild as We. Whose woods these are, I think I know. They call me from the village though. And while I walk here, they are mine, these willow, alder, elm, and pine. These maple, live oak, mountain ash, chestnut, birch, and sassafras. The ponderosa, banyan, beech, and sycamore, catalpa, peach. The woods that grow as wild as we and spring like us are free. They call me from the village low, and we can stay or we can go. And we can stay or we can go, or lie among pistachio and laurel, larch, or linden tree, and boxwood, lemon, ebony, and drink the juice of tangerine and love on beds of frangipane, and weave a wreath of Sicily with cherries from the cherry tree, and hazelnuts and holly bright to match your hazel eyes tonight, and never go where we are known without the green we call our own. Thank you very much.
Okay. Our next reader is Jenna Lay. Jenna is the author of 2 collections of poetry. Oh, excuse me, is the author of 6 Rivers, published by NYQ Books in 2011, and A History of Cetacean American Diaspora by Indolent Books in 2018. She's also an Elgin Awards 2nd place winner, voted on by the International Membership of the Science Fiction and Fantasy Poetry Association. She was selected by Marilyn Nelson as a winner of the Poetry by the Sea's inaugural sonnet competition, and then she was chosen by Julie Kane as the winner of Poetry by the Sea's 2020 sonnet crown competition. Her poems appear in numerous publications as well, and that should be up on the Craft website. She has a bachelor's in math and an MD, and she currently lives and works in New York City as a physician. So, Jenna?
All right. Thank you so much for having me here, Ryan, and thank you, Cherise, for the conference. And yeah, I recognize a lot of faces. I realize I've met a lot of you, and all of you that I've met, or probably most of you that I've met, is probably thanks to Kim. I first knew Kim when she published my work in Mezzo Cammin, and later when she asked me to come to Poetry by the Sea, and I met her a number of times at Poetry by the Sea. And really before that, I didn't really know that many other people in poetry, and she was made such a big difference in my life by, you know, there was something that she did was bring people out of their isolation and bring people together and build community and build a sense of people supporting each other. And that always made a big difference to me. So I'll begin by reading my own poem in the anthology, which is called Wheat Fields. My mother's armoire threw light like a star on her cream white duvets, proud rose bouquets. As leads crossed, she sat sifting its hoard, by turns lifting the jades and the pearls, and the gold chains swirl in their clamshell-like boxes, the pendants and lockets. Her sweater's wool itched, mothball scent in each stitch, when I leaned in to finger a trinket. I'd linger long on the splay of her fragrant duvet, feeling blessed to remain in that special domain beside her. Supine, I tricked my own mind into thinking each door of her glossy armoire was a lush field of wheat spread under my feet, a fairy tale bounty. There's no accounting, but tonight, as we mounted our honeymoon bed, dear, this memory fountained back into my head. And I'll read Sally Knacker's poem, Saying Goodbye. If my heart arrests, let it keep arresting. I kept thinking of your willed words as I walked one last time that spring to your summer house. Birds hopped and sang in the thickets on either side of Veery Lane. The green world trembled, so bright I cried. At the end of the long lane, the small screened-in wood house stood. Something fluttered inside it like a large moth. Or could it be a bird, I thought as I came closer. I saw then its nervous movement through the screen, a little brown house wren. I propped the door open between the green world and the world inside, stepped in and drew close to the frightened thing, tried to guide it toward and through the opening. I could tell the wren's small heart was beating wildly, could see its little eyes, so gentle. Then off it flew into the trembling.
Thanks, Jenna. Okay, our final author that's going to be reading is Jean Krelling. Jean is the author of 2 collections of poetry, Arts and Letters and Love.
A little rest and relaxation for a few weeks.
Oh.
Hey, we can all use it.
There we go. Okay. Arts, Letters, and Love from 2018, and The Truth and Dissonance from 2014. Her work has been honored with the Able Muse Writers Prize and the Great Lakes Commonwealth of Letters Sonnet Prize, the Kelsey Books Metrical Poetry Prize, a Laureate's Prize in the Maria W. Faust Sonnet Contest, 3 New England Poetry Club Prizes, the Plymouth Poetry Contest Prize, and the String Poet Prize. Jean is a professor emeritus of music at Bridgewater State University. Her articles on the intersection between music and literature have been published in several academic journals. And I'll actually be putting the link in here. I don't know if Summer Evening is the poem you're going to be reading, Jean. Is that where you're going to be reading tonight?
Oh, no, I hadn't planned to read that one.
Okay, then I won't worry about posting the link to the image. So, okay, Jean. Yeah.
Thank you, Ryan. And thanks for all your work putting together this reading and the book. We're all indebted to you. I'm going to start with something light from that great light poet, my friend Chris O'Carroll. This is called Summer of the Shark. A seal population explosion has sharks hunting close to this beach. It's a hot day. I'd love to go swimming, but I want to keep out of their reach. News reports about fins in the surf are enough to give anyone pause. I'd rather my sun and sand selfies did not look like outtakes from Jaws. Though a dip would be cool and refreshing, shark bites take forever to heal. So I'm just wading up to my ankles, trying hard not to look like a seal. And I'll read my own sonnet. There's an element in this poem of gratitude to my parents, who gave unquestioning and unobtrusive support for everything I did. Kim Bridgford gave unobtrusive, quiet, but invaluable support to my work as a poet starting many years ago. I deeply regret missing the opportunity to get to know her better. The title of this poem refers to the place where I grew up, a small village on the east end of Long Island, New York, called Westhampton Beach. So this is a sonnet, and the title is Twilight, Westhampton Beach. We who truly loved the ocean stayed, not sated by our afternoon of sun, not bored as waves repetitively played with wind and light. The day was nearly done, and still we stayed, our parents giving in when we still craved the water and the sand, addicted to the heartbeat-hailing din of breakers' bluster teasing tender land. The less enchanted left. They'd had their swim and picnic lunch. They'd found their perfect shell. They didn't watch the sinking sunlight skim the water in its lingering farewell. Our parents let us stay. And now I wonder if they too felt the spell that we were under. Thank you.
Thanks, Jean. Okay, so we obviously moved through that a little quicker than I thought we would. My time management skills are apparently less than impeccable. So I wanted to kind of leave it up to everybody here. I could do one of two things. I would like to either share my poem or a part of the foreword that I wrote. If I can argue on my own behalf, I believe my creative nonfiction is better than my own poetry. So does anybody have a personal opinion?
I want to hear Ryan's poem.
Crap. We weren't supposed to say that. Okay. This is actually my first published poem ever. And it was one that Dr. Bridgford gave me critiques on after I got to Westchester for my first semester, after a long time away from college. I spent a decade in the military. So this is actually the edited version of The Summer Hill. This poem was actually written, does anybody know Allentown, Pennsylvania at all? This poem was written with the hill at the Allentown State Hospital in mind, where I grew up, which is now actually set to be destroyed. So The Summer Hill, a thought for tonight, just one among many. Its worth far exceeds any number of pennies. In front of me lies the hill of my youth, not barren or dead. It's a memory of summer, fresh honeysuckle covered in dew, while a sugar-sweet wind blows and soothes the fiercest burning in the depths of my soul. Like a film of my life, I watch from the point, all the good, all the bad, my first kiss, my first fight, and playing ball with the boys. It's all gone today, and I can never go home. But the hill in my thoughts will never go home. Will never grow old. Excuse me. And that's it. Yeah. So, would everybody mind if I quick share from the foreword? Okay, because there's actually a bit of humor in here. So this is literally the first, let's say, half of the foreword. The second half is just saying thanks and whatnot. I remember the evening drives from Coatesville to Westchester during my first semester back at university. The nights were, as one might expect of a midwinter class, already dark by the time I departed my East Fallowfield driveway, but there was a brightness to them. The muted resplendence of post-Yule flurries helps to maintain that unspoken magical quality that usually dies out by the second or third week of January. That crispness makes you feel alive, even if it compels you toward feeling as if you should go back inside and find something less chilly to do. Hot chocolate is apropos under such circumstances. But for the first time since my release from the Army, I had somewhere important to be. And so every Wednesday night around 6:30 or so, I fell into my old ramshackle Mustang and sped down Route 162 towards campus. Anybody who spent any amount of time at Westchester University will understand what I mean when I say that Main Hall has a certain peculiar comfort to it. Even if that comfort comes in the form of rooms without adequate temperature control, windows that don't open all the way, exacerbating the previous issue, and the less than fully stocked vending machines that with unreasonably priced foodstuffs purchased by students whose eating habits some might consider questionable in the best of cases. Main Hall is comfortable in the way an old house is comfortable. The mugginess of its interior beckons you in like your grandma, all smelling of coffee and nicotine, whose sole purpose in life was to hug you at the waist because she's a foot shorter than you, and to sneak $20 into your back pocket when your parents aren't looking. It always felt as if the professoriate of the English department, each in his or her way, embodied some aspect of this parental caring for its students. Some, such as my friend and mentor, Dr. Paul Maltby, were and are classically trained lecturers whose orderliness and precision belie a staunch paternalistic concern, laser focused on developing the sharpest minds possible. Others, such as Louanne Smith, cultivated creativity in her students through what can only be described as unbridled warmth and kindness, which, it should be noted, is never to be conflated with easiness. Dr. Kim Bridgford, Kim for those who knew her, was an entirely different kind of professor. I don't remember precisely what she was wearing the night I met her, but I do remember her debouching into our upper level poetry seminar with a purposefulness that I hadn't noticed in other educators until that point. Dr. Bridgford was slender, a bit on the shorter side with dark hair, a soft, evenly toned voice, and a penchant for animal print coats and fancy flats. Scarves may have been involved occasionally, but even if they weren't, for some reason, I can still picture one trailing behind her as she triumphantly assumed control of the room. She was one part tiny troubadour, to borrow from one of our authors, Leslie Schultz, and one part drill sergeant. I used to joke around that Dr. Bridgford liked to handle her students with kid gloves. It just so happened that those gloves were cast iron and riveted. Still, within the toughness resonated an undeniable authenticity that I believe even the most cynical student was forced to respect. I won't mince words. Dr. Bridgford demanded a lot of her students, an imposing proposition for a guy just returning to school for the first time in nearly a decade. And that demand was legitimized by the impressive Uba, I can never say that word, that we all knew she was responsible for, but hardly ever talked about. Animal print and imaginary scarves aside, Dr. Bridgford was always modest, at least as long as I knew her, and especially as it pertained to her craft. While she was exceptionally skilled at free-form poetry, her real gift was the way she worked with form. One collection of sestinas, the name of which escapes me, was something of a legend for creative writing students at Westchester University because of the sheer amount of time it took her to produce. The mere idea of it set a precedent for the kind of work that lay ahead of us. And her work with sonnets, the work she seemed most prolific at, is truly something to behold. Titles like Undone, Instead of Maps, and in the extreme, Sonnets About World Records are all award-worthy or winning endeavors. That said, it's the singular poems like Why Sisyphus Isn't a Woman that stuck with me, if only because of the playful and poignant antagonism they presented for someone as invested in philosophy as I am. Yeah, Dr. Bridgford demanded the best of us, and her demands came by example. Because of that, we were willing to ground ourselves to dust in our workshop, and we were all the better for it. I'm almost done, I swear to God. Reflecting on time spent with an educator like Dr. Bridgford raises a pertinent, if not highfalutin, question for a person such as myself. What is a professor in the first place? Taken at its face, the notion is simple enough, hardly worth an in-depth discussion. But grasp it at its root. The word references one who affirms, who lays claim to knowledge openly. A professor is avowed to truth, and the solemnity of such being avowed is only matched in its profundity by the effect such professing has on others, regardless of their situation or status within the hierarchies of culture and academia. Personal experience has taught me this much. I simply would not be the writer I am today had I not the opportunity to study with such a formidable individual. In an era where academia is content with current laissez-faire approaches to student expectations, Dr. Bridgford unapologetically called for more and hopefully received more in return, especially from me. This anthology is a testament to that formidability. Included in the list of authors are former students, mentees of a strictly professional nature, acquaintances from both Westchester and Fairfield universities where Dr. Bridgford taught, and individuals invested at Poetry by the Sea, the conference she established. For those who don't know, the first part of the book, Summertime Poems, is a wealth of material from published and unpublished poets alike, each poem disclosing a facet of the slow, languid months that have long since passed. The second part of the book, Summertime Stories, speaks to the different relationships of the summer, both relationships with friends, with family, with the ocean, with possible lovers, and most of all, with the year itself. So for all those of you who hopefully will become readers of the anthology, I hope you'll enjoy reading these works as much as I did while putting this anthology together. This absolutely reinvigorated my love of poetry, something that has not seen as much energy as it possibly should have, at least in the last couple of years. So everybody, thank you.
Thank you all so much. And I thought this was so lovely. And when I held space in the program for the Bridgford Memorial, I was trying to figure out how to do it. And when I heard that Amaranthine Summer's publication date was so near our conference, our festival, I thought, well, of course, it's just perfect to kind of launch Amaranthine Summer this way, and for us to show our support for Ryan and Shane and the work that you all have done. So tremendously appreciative as one of Kim's colleagues and someone who was on the founding board of Poetry by the Sea. It is wonderful to see so many familiar faces and to hear this wonderful work. I thought it might be a good idea to open up we have a little bit of time for discussion or for conversation. Or
actually, Dr. Pollard, so Julia Otto is in the audience, and she had inquired about reading. Would everybody mind if she did the reading as well?
Please, yeah.
Julia, I don't happen to have your biography on hand.
That's fine. There's not much of one to have at this point. I'm a student. Oh, I was a student at Westchester. I graduated amid the pandemic, so sometimes I forget that I did graduate. That said, I'm so glad to be here with everyone. I feel like I learned so much just from listening to all of you present your work and the work of others that you admire. I didn't know Dr. Bridgford as well as I would have liked to, but I did attend some of the events that she was at, and we had casual conversations amid the finger foods and got to know each other, and she introduced me to her colleagues and other students like me that were interested in poetry. So I'm very honored to be here. I will keep it brief. I only have one poem to read, and it's called The Rain Has Taught Me How. I don't remember when I wrote this poem, but I remember rewriting it many, many times. And it's kind of about how when something bad happens, you need to find the good in it and grow through it, and that makes you a stronger person. So I think it's a little bit fitting for the past year and all of the trials and tribulations we've been through. So here we go. The rain has taught me how. In sorrow, beauty grows. Sadness ripens the roots with full bellies, enlivening branches a deep, sensual green. As the gutters drip, the clouds puddle, the sun washes its face of a blue sky and becomes becoming of itself. The earth richer, the air thicker, a smile, strawberry swollen eyes. The rain has taught me how. Trial is a shower running through mud puddle crow's feet footpaths, dry cloth, wipes away underbrush, thrusting roots deepening, strengthen the hold between rock, bone, living once lived down here. The wisest teacher, living itself. Through all things, my roots are strong, flowers bloom, but only with a good seasoning. Thank you.
Thanks, Julia.
Thank you, Julia. That's great.
You know, I can't get over how I've had the great fortune to become very familiar with all of these poems. and I'll still never get over how much better they are when the authors themselves read them. You can't do them justice. So, would anybody? So, as we spoke about, we're going to be opening the floor now. Does anybody have anything they'd like to talk about as far as Dr. Bridgford or the anthology?
Yes, go
What,
ahead.
what is the publication date for the book?
Oh, Jean? I mean, Karen?
You're muted, Karen. You're muted, Karen.
Technology's fun, isn't it?
Hey.
You're good.
We had it planned to release in April. It's Poetry Month. So I've been filling the orders, and everything that's come in has been filled. It takes about 16 days to print and mail, and most people will be getting theirs in about 5 days, I think.
Thank you.
It should be soon.
Thank
I
you.
did process yours.
Oh, great.
I'm
Great.
doing it all by hand.
On that note, Karen,
Brian,
who's talking?
hi, Linda Stern.
Oh, hey, how you doing?
I'm good, thanks. It's been a real pleasure to be sitting in and listening to everyone read and to see so many familiar faces. And I just wanted to make a note that we're at Poetry by the Sea. We're planning a celebration of Kim also, May 26th. And so there'll be an announcement and everyone can mark their calendars. We would really very much like to have all of you and people who love Kim, come and celebrate with us. So that's May 26th. Watch out for the announcement on Facebook, and thank you all again.
Linda?
Thank you for that announcement.
Thank you. Yeah, I just have I wasn't sure if it was even going to happen. Is it happening in the real world or?
It's a Zoom. It'll be Zoom.
Yeah.
Just because maybe by May 26th, the world will be all open up again, but we couldn't make that decision all the way back when.
It's a bit soon. Yeah. Yeah.
So it'll be streamed to Facebook. So we'll do that.
So it'll be Facebook link, it'll live stream to Facebook. And,
yes.
Okay.
It'll be live streamed to Facebook. And there'll be a recording also that we'll be able to put up on the Poetry by the Sea, link to YouTube.
Great.
Joyce Wilson is one of the panelists.
I am, yes. I hope I didn't make you feel, Ryan, I was withholding information about Kim.
No.
I am doing that because
No.
I knew her for a really long time. I think I met her in 2000 or 2001, and we really connected when we both took Charles Martin's workshop in 2003. And, so I saw her go through the whole thing of win the prize and then get the appointment. And I just was full of admiration for her and tried to be as supportive as I could, and would always send her critiques afterward. And I am trying to put together, it makes me very emotional that she is gone. And I love the direction of her explorations, the way she really wanted to be sure to bring in substantial African-American poets. I thought that was a really important thing to do. And the musicians that she got, and she was a great organizer. And the way everybody felt included, everybody had a place in the programs that she organized. So is the Poetry by the Sea virtually, is that going to be over several days?
No, it's going to be a one day.
A 1 day? Okay.
Several hours event. We'll have a panel, we'll have a lecture, we will have video tributes by people, we'll have the reading of Kim's poems, and we'll have the poetry award announcements too.
Yeah.
So a lot of highlights, key points.
Is the timeline seminar going to take, because that was another thing Kim started, this timeline of women poets, that she said she wanted to have essays about every woman poet in the world. And, I kept saying, Kim, this will never be finished. And she was like, well, we have 50, we have 75, isn't it great? And so I wrote 3 or 4 of those, and I worked harder on those than I have worked on anything. But it was just really a challenge to pick a poem, a woman poet, and write her biography and cover her poems, match the poems to stages of her life, work out the whole timeline thing. So I know Anna Evans wants to continue with that, but it sounds like there won't be time at Poetry by the Sea this year.
We won't be doing that on
that day. Yeah.
On that day at this event. Okay. So I'm not sure what Anna has in mind, or whether, she's the person. I know what a good writer you are, Joyce, because I've been the beneficiary of your writing. So I'm sure you have put a lot of work on this.
Jean's been and ask a question for a second here.
Sorry, I can contribute a little bit to that conversation. I just was in contact with Anna, the name of a poet to report on next May. It will apparently happen next May, but I did have a question for Linda. I haven't seen any announcements about Poetry by the Sea on Facebook or anywhere else.
Well, this has been in the works, and now that we're sure we can go ahead. We're going to be announcing this week. So Anna will look for Anna. She'll make an announcement, probably on Facebook. And then as we, really firm up the details, we'll be able to put out more and more information. But since we're here, I didn't anticipate actually being here because I didn't actually know this was going on until today. But I thought, let me give people a heads up.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you, Ryan.
It was like I said in the chat box, I was happy to do it. It was really my honor. Funny story about Dr. Bridgford and me. In fact, funny story about me in general. My first semester back in college was technically my junior year. She was one of the first classes I had back, and I did poorly that semester. In fact, funny thing, I only got a B+ in her class. I was on academic probation, and she basically told me let me put it in the amount of words I possibly can. Basically, that she knew I could do better and to basically straighten myself up. And she told me that at Poetry by the Sea, where she invited me, that she basically told me to come up during the semester. And when I was there for the one day I could be there, she said, listen, I knew you could do better, shape up. So Dr. Bridgford is very much the reason why I'm actually teaching English now. I might not have made it through college. Yeah, I'm open to applauses for her. I did horribly.
She touched a lot of people, and it's good to hear those stories.
Yeah, she was persuasive that way.
Yeah, persuasive.
Yeah.
Like I said, cast iron gloves.
Yeah.
As a military man, you must appreciate the order to shape up.
Yeah, it was one of the, like I said, between her and people like Paul Maltby, I was very fortunate to have professors who weren't afraid to be direct with you. And I fear that that's something a lot of students aren't gonna, they're not gonna get that experience that I had. That's more is the pity for them. So.
I just want to say that, I've never actually been, quote, taught by Kim. So I really saw the other side of her, the sweet, soft, empathic side. I mean, she actually, oh my God, it wasn't that long ago. We met and had lunch at the Getty. I remember it was the day she was going to have her Rattle interview. I don't know if you guys saw that in one issue of Rattle. There was an interview with her. And since she was coming to LA, you know, we met, and it was just such a wonderful day, really. It was like I was meeting an old friend, but I didn't know her very well, you know. But she has that kind of personality where you immediately, she puts you at your ease, you know, and that's kind of a rare quality. And I just went home that day thinking, oh my God, what an incredible day. You know, she's that kind of person. I just wanted to put a word in for that. Yeah.
Well, one thing I would like to add, I enjoyed all the readings and really glad that Charlotte told me about this today, and appreciated Charlotte's reading. But one thing, one of the pleasures of a gathering like this is, you know, in the Zoom age, and even on TV, people being interviewed via video, people often have bookcases behind them that have not neatly stacked books that have vases on them. It's not clear that the books have ever been opened, but as I look around, and those of you with bookcases behind them, you can tell that the books have been read many times and actually opened. So it's one of the pleasures of getting to attend a gathering of writers.
I love to quote Susan Sontag at this moment. I've read all those books.
Well, I can see from the bookcases behind you and Charlotte and Pat and Jenna and George that they've all been read many times.
Wonderful, right? Wonderful literary culture we share.
Yeah.
Great.
Just like to say too, it's just so great to see you guys, because I realize that I have gotten to know so many of you through, I know other people have said this, but through Westchester and Poetry by the Sea. And just to get together like this is really, really nice. You know, it gives me a real boost. So thank you, everyone.
And Charlotte, to piggyback off that, it's especially nice for me because I've been interacting with you all for, well,
yeah.
What, since what, last June?
Was it?
No, a little bit after that, I think.
Yeah. A lot.
I think about it. Yeah. And maybe yeah, so it's finally nice to be able to put voices to the faces I've seen in the, you know, small pictures on the profiles of email boxes. I did make this announcement at the beginning of this, by the way, too, so everybody's aware of the situation with Shane. I thought I'd share the good news. He's moving very far along on his process of recovery. For those who don't know, Shane had some serious medical conditions. He's actually beginning to be able to speak again. He's been texting me pretty frequently. He didn't quite feel comfortable enough to be on the camera tonight, but he sends his well wishes and told everybody thanks for being a part of this. And you know, this just meant the world to him. To secondhand share a story from him, and I can't, you know, obviously speak to the his you know, his own explicit feelings, but Shane he's like my inverted doppelganger. You know, I went from English to philosophy, and he went from philosophy to English, a creative writer at that. And he was having a little bit of a weird time with some of the classes, and then he had Dr. Bridgford's poetry seminar, and you know, he'd come into the writing center. If you've ever seen anybody enter a room with like a bop in their step, you know, about just really being excited about something, that was Shane. And on top of that, Shane was already an exuberant guy to begin with, so for him to be more happy than he normally was really something. So this anthology meant everything to him, and I'm really looking forward to him getting his copy. So excuse me, sorry.
No, that's wonderful. I mean, I remember talking with you guys about this last summer, and thinking about how you wanted to do it, and you were new to publishing. I mean, these two have never published a book before, so it is a true learning experience. It is a true labor of respect and love that they have done this, and it is a true endurance of friendship in terms of Ryan holding space for Shane while he was so very ill, and all of that, right, in the shadow of the pandemic, right? All of that in the space where you know, I'm not going to try to make you cry, Ryan. I'm not trying to do that. But all of that in the shadow of the pandemic and all of that, in the shadow of so much loss, right? And so for that, this book is, this anthology is a tremendous effort that should be celebrated. Y'all buy the book, right? Buy the book, get it out there, share your links, and have and so the celebration may continue. And it's wonderful, and we hope that you know, when Shane is well enough to join us, he will, and you'll be able to do that maybe in May when you're all together with the Poetry by the Sea group. So there's much to celebrate, as there is, I mean, celebrating Kim's life and the example she set and the work that she did and the investments that she made in her friendships and her students and the projects, the multiple projects that somebody's got to see how we're moving forward with all of those endeavors. There's a lot to do. So we just have so much respect and so much love for her and her memory.
Well, I'm looking forward to that, and I will actually inform Shane about. Dr. Pollard, did Shane get to go to that one last year? I don't think he's
get to go to
the Poetry by the Sea last year. I don't think
it happened last year because of the pandemic. Everything was shut down by March. Everything was shut down. So definitely by May, nothing happened. And then Dr. Bridgford was sick in May. So there was, even if there hadn't been a pandemic, I don't know if they would have been able to.
You'd think I would remember that. Don't mind me, everybody. I'm mildly burnt out.
Things layers on top of layers on top of layers. But I just want to, does anyone else have anything more to say before we sort of wrap this up? Do you want to say anything to close, or do you want me to close it?
Well, I'd just like to say thank you again to everybody, by the way.
Yeah. And thank you, Ryan. Just a wonderful job. And you can add MC to your list of things that you're great at as a lone wolf writer, MC, military guy.
By the way, again, Karen, I can't thank you enough. We couldn't have done this without Karen.
Thank you guys for asking me to be involved. It was really nice closure, nice way to just wrap things up and have a book to remember her by, and it's nice.
Yeah, Karen, I knew that when I said to them, go find Karen Kelsey, she will help you. I knew that you would step up and do that. So we're very appreciative. I said there's no way that you can have Barnes and Noble print on demand this book. Someone who is a true publisher of poetry and her friend should be able to publish this book. And so I'm just so very
tell them that.
They didn't know. And so, but Karen stepped up and helped you. And that's
Ryan's true ignorance has been illuminated.
It's not ignorant. No, most people would publish that way. So she saved you from that. So anyway, we want to, I just want to thank everyone who's been with us through the last 4 days, everyone who's just come in here for today, for these last few sets of events, when we've had a wonderful 4 days of programming, in our first Poetry and Creative Arts Festival. So we're very, very grateful. One of the things yesterday was sitting in a group online, and my mother was downstairs watching group online, and she said, it feels like we're all in the same room. And I said, that's it. That's exactly it. That is what community means. That's what connection is. We all feel like no matter where we are, if we're coming from England, we're coming from California, we're coming from, out, the deep South, we have people from Brazil, we have people from Romania, we've had people from Canada. It's just been an amazing gathering of poets And
I want to echo your mother and thank you.
thank
I would
you.
like very much to thank you and to echo your mother. You have made this feel like a family. I've enjoyed this conference very much.
Thank you so much. And it's so lovely to have you back with us this evening. So I know you've been out poeting all day somewhere else. So
Oh my goodness,
I
yes.
appreciate you coming this evening.
But I wanted to see the group again and to hear the words about Kim, of course.
Thank you.